Time for a bit more, no more heroes. Let's look at some cool websites and get some inspiration. Today we're going to look at CSS-tricks, their version 18 of their site. They helpfully number the versions, and they have written a little blog article about it to explain what the changes are, why they've made them, and some of the improvements. So that's really cool. If you're not aware of what CSS-tricks is, I don't know how you made it to this video, because it's really the home for a lot of front-end development resources, and is just such an incredibly helpful tool for so many features, not just within the world of CSS, but HTML, JavaScript frameworks, accessibility, performance, all kinds of things within that browser-based development domain, and has been for years and years. They seem to redesign their website every year, every couple of years, quite frequently. Not because of, I think there's any urgent need, but it seems that they just have an enjoyment for refreshing things, and then I think putting their money where their mouth is. I guess Chris Coy and that team, who are constantly talking about the most modern, up-to-date features of web development, what tools they could be using, what things they want to do. So why not put it into practice on a site which is aimed at a core audience of web developers who are going to appreciate it. It's interesting to see that they talk about working in a design tool initially. So they worked in Figma to do just a few ideas, get an idea of what the header and the footer, the colors, but then quite quickly move that into a browser with the real data and start trying to play around to get a better feel for it. That's interesting. I wonder how often that happens, that something that's going to be dynamic content like a blog, you want to kind of just, the design doesn't have to be pixel perfect before you start. You kind of just want to use that to get your flavoring. Interesting talk about colors and about trying to make the thing simpler. I guess, again, if you're hosting lots of articles and content, you want that to be the thing that takes focus. So you kind of want to become quite neutral and allow the content to stand out more than anything. There's some interesting talk about using mixed blend mode with the featured images, so they will kind of overlay into the content, they don't dominate too much. Another interesting, they make a point about their stats. They've kind of run through and said that we're down in file size, down in lines of code, down in selections. They've actually simplified their post types to have just a few variations, but it's all going to have one type that has adjustments, and previously it had more. So they've kind of simplified the design and simplified the structure, the design system, I suppose, but also reduced the code. But they made a point of saying that they still don't consider their site to be very quick. Still got quite a lot of images, still quite a lot of JavaScript for their features, but they kind of discuss this trade-off, which is very interesting. The idea of, yes, we could make the site twice as performant, we could reduce it right down, but you would be starting to reduce the functionality. You might just start to also take away from the fun of the site and sort of where its features or its strengths particularly are. I think that's kind of interesting, that you can kind of often be on one extreme or the other. You just go for all out bells and whistles, lots of cool features, and you make a big old balloon of JavaScript. Or you kind of go to the other extreme and you kind of say, we're going to make this thing so tightly performant that hardly anything loads initially, and this thing loads super quickly, but it's actually now going to be quite limited in what it does. So it's kind of saying we reached a benchmark where we're happy. They've got green scores on all their Lighthouse, but we're going to have some fun as well. We're going to put in some nice things, and we're going to not sacrifice on features. So straight away you've got just some fun with effects. You can see this header here is overlaying slightly on the top post. That's quite an unusual thing to see. They're using a lovely linear gradient of a range of colors. CSS-tricks, I suppose, has always had orange as one of its colors, but doesn't worry about veering out of that too much. So you've got this kind of stylized look. You've got these kind of fun, janky animations. They kind of look a little bit over the top, but that's fine. It's just like quite a satisfying feeling as you hover these. Also this funny spinning top, which I think is using interaction observer, which works out when the element is in view, so it knows to trigger an animation. It's just a kind of a completely pointless Easter egg. I am not a fan of that scroll bar. It's hard to see. I guess custom scroll bars always feel a bit off, including the one they've got for the main navigation. They previously had one that was really gaudy, like a big blocky orange one, which always looked a bit hideous, but this grey one is kind of hard to spot and hard to notice, hard to appreciate. Saying that, like, to judge the homepage and to scroll through is not really entirely fair. That's to say that I don't know how often people do just visit the homepage and look just for whatever articles are about. A lot of their articles do the rounds in these newsletter roundups, and they get shared around a lot via the social sites. So your entry point is via a post usually. This is probably the most default way in which people arrive at CSS-tricks day to day. The post types have always got a very identifiable, despite a complete redesign. There's nothing kind of stark that makes you confused whether you're on CSS-tricks website. I guess that's through their fonts, their spacing. The key features are still exactly as you'd expect. Just some nice little subtle animation, drop shadow there. Just some fun things. And obviously, yeah, the content should above all be the thing that stands out and the thing that people value. So it's always done that, and it continues to do so with your standard document, black text, white background, and so this redesign is really just about what fun you can have in the little spaces around that content. It's really light, kind of border radius, just sort of become old-fashioned with web development, but just kind of simple menu. It's quite nice. The highlighted thing having this solid color. I guess there are just aspects of it that seem really stark and really bold, but it looks as if somebody's just decided to play with the sliders. Let's just push all these colors mad. Let's push these features in. Let's just have janky animations. It's like someone's really just had a playground fun with this and tried things out. And in many ways, that's quite reassuring. It's obvious that the target audience is going to be front-end web developers, people that might want to pick over the site and pull apart the code and see what they've done and why. So it's a bit of a kind of love letter to the people who are going to enjoy the actual process of web development. It really just conveys that it's first and foremost in terms of, is it a good, trustworthy, reliable looking site in terms of its content and its value? Yes, and people know CSS-tricks and they're going to continue to use it. But it's also just fun. I think it conveys this idea that it's made by people who love websites, who love building web projects, who enjoy the modern tech, and it's clearly run by people who are enthused about the content that they're then providing on their site. So I think that's quite an enjoyable aspect of this redesign. It's always exciting when they've done a fresh design, because you get to sort of pick over whatever little tweaks and features they've added in, and they've then written articles and done podcasts to talk about some of the decisions they took along the way. So in a sort of a reflexive meta structure, it's quite nice that this is a website which can document its own creation as part of its own content. It's quite a rare thing. All in all, like a really enjoyable site, and I think there's something to be said for having fun with websites again. Just starting to think about, fulfilling your brief first and foremost about what your site is trying to do, but starting to play with things and have fun, and then not worry about pushing those things up to use and get feedback on. It's a really enjoyable project. Yeah, let me know what you think though, because it's could be contentious. I wonder if people like it. That's all.